134 years ago, a Scotsman went to India and spent the best part of his life in Calcutta. Daniel, later to become Sir Daniel Hamilton, was born in Glasgow on the 6th of December 1860. 20 years later, he travelled to Calcutta to work for the shipping line Mackinnon and Mackenzie in Calcutta, with which he had family connections, and handled many government contracts, mail and army personnel between India and Britain, and he became the sole agent for the selling of tickets to civilians who wished to travel to and from the subcontinent on these ships. With the result, he became head of the company and master of an immense fortune and became one of the richest men in British India. He travelled 150 kilometres south to the Bay of Bengal, and upon looking at the shores, remarked, "Look how much this mud is worth." In 1903, he invested his money and bought 10,000 acres of this tide country from the government. These acres consisted of a group of islands at the mouth of the Ganges and Brahmaputra, known as the Sunderbans. The islands, covered with the largest mangrove ecosystem in the world, also act as a storm barrier, a shore stabiliser, and nutrient and sediment trap. He was passionately fond of his idea of cooperation, and was one of the first pioneers of the cooperative movement in India. Goshaba is one of the main islands, and as the land was completely covered by high tide, rising to as much as 15 feet every 6 hours, the scrub and forest had to be cleared to allow work to start on building embankments and dikes. Little by little he reclaimed the land and induced peasants from densely populated neighbouring districts to go there. He built a model farm, a rice mill, schools and hospitals, and a bank, but did not install electricity and telephone, as he did not want to encourage people to have a lavish life. He built his own house in Goshaba. Daniel was knighted in 1906. In 1919, Sir Daniel bought Balmacara estate on the Scottish Lochash Peninsula and retired from India to live there with his wife in 1925. They visited Goshaba every winter, staying in the house he had built. He died on his birthday in 1939, and when Lady Hamilton died in 1946, the estate of Balmacara was gifted to the National Trust. Today, 2014, the general impression in Calcutta is the Sunderbans as a land of mangroves, crocodiles and tigers. In fact, it is not that primitive. Settlers have been living here for the past century and haven't seen a tiger. There are tigers. Over 270 Royal Bengal tigers live on the forested islands, which have fencing around them to keep them from swimming across to inhabited islands, and to protect fishermen and honey gatherers who collect 20,000 kilos of honey every year and who work by their shores. All goods to and from Calcutta and other islands have to be transported by boat. There are no roads or cars on the islands. Concrete steps with landings at varying heights because of high tides lead down to the boats on the island of Goshaba. Many boats have been stranded on the mud since the last very high tide or cyclonic winds. There are a total of 84 species of flora, of which 34 are true mangrove. Mangroves have the ability to maintain a suitable water balance in spite of the salinity of the water. Since the aeration of the clayey soil is very poor, some trees have special aerial roots whose tips protrude out of the mud like spikes. Visitors to the Sunderbans are able to visit the Tiger Reserve, which is a 2-story tower from which one can look down on cleared lanes within the dense forest.
Yes.
I was lucky to see a man-eater from a distance of half a mile walking down one of these lanes. With great excitement, as this was the first tiger seen for over 2 months.
Last ending place.
Yeah. There is also a tiger butterfly. Village people are very resilient. Each family has its plot of land on which to grow rice, vegetables and fruit.
Vegetable as fresh and used for the lantern soup. Breakfast time is a very good soup. Powder and it's green banana, all is mixed.
Local name, but scientific name is Xylocarpus.
Every home has a water tank which can be used for irrigating their crops and rice fields.
For the drinking water.
Long bamboo poles are used for building homes. And apart from agriculture being the primary source of livelihood, timber, honey, paraffin, salt and fish maintain a sustainable lifestyle for these islanders. A motor tricycle is the only means of travel, apart from bicycles, around the village. And a bumpy ride takes one past the school. Back on a boat, we pass a variety of river craft transporting goods and people to the Sunderbans from the cities further north for a weekend break as we return to Calcutta. Daniel Hamilton's legacy may go unnoticed now, but without his involvement over a century ago, this area would be a wilderness.